of guests here, so I'm going to quickly run through as your boxes are showing on my screen. So we've got Port Orchard City Council Member Scott Diener. We've got Kitsap County Commissioner Charlotte Garrido, Port Orchard City Council Member John Clausen, Port Orchard City Council Member Cindy Lucarelli, Port Orchard City Council Member Jay Rosa Pepe, Port Orchard City Council Member Sean Kachardi, Kitsap County Commissioner Rob Gilder, Port Orchard City Council Member Fred Chang, and we have Port Orchard City Council Member Beck Ashby, and we have a number of city and county staff. From county staff, we've got I think it's the Human Services Director, Doug Washburn. Did I get that one right? And we've got the County Parks Director, Alex Winooski. Wisniewski. Okay, thank you, Charlotte. We've got our city attorney, always attends all of our meetings. So Charlotte Archer is here with us. We've got two representatives from the clerk's office handling all of our recording needs and everything related to Zoom here. So we've got Janine Floyd and Brandy Reinerson. We've got our police chief, Matt Brown, and our code enforcement officer, Katie Cassad. And so I'm going to, if I could, Scott, you've got your hand raised. Is there for a reason?
Before we get started, I'd like to point out that my day job is with Kitsap County. My boss's boss works directly for the Board of County Commissioners. I don't believe that that leads to a conflict of interest, but if anybody believes so, I'd like to hear discussion about that.
Okay. Does anybody feel Scott has a conflict? Not seeing anybody shaking their head up and down. So,
Mayor, I have a comment on that.
Okay.
I think there's we live in a small community, and there's these types of things happen. And I think as far as the city council members on this call, it's our obligation to represent the citizens of Port Orchard. And I would hope that we could separate, our professional careers versus our obligations of elected officials.
Thank you for that comment. Okay, and with that, I'm going to go into ask for citizen comments. So if you'd like to provide comment, we're going to limit comment to 2 minutes this evening. You would use the raise your hand feature, and the clerk will promote you into the meeting, and will allow you 2 minutes to address the county commissioners and the city council. So Brandy or Janine, do you have anybody wishing to address us this evening?
Yes, we have one person by the name of Jade that has their hand raised. I will allow that person to talk.
Okay. All right, Jade, you can unmute yourself and provide your comment. You're muted, Jay.
There we go. Yes, we're good. Okay. So my question here is, so us citizens of Port Orchard, we live in a very small community, and cars have been being stolen. And what are we going to do to alleviate this problem we have in Kitsap County?
So Jade, this is a citizen comment period. It's not a question and answer session. So
okay.
If you've got a comment to provide, we're happy to hear it.
Okay, so my comment is what? I'm sorry.
I'm not certain. It's for you to provide comment.
My comment is you guys are doing a great job. However, what are we going to do to alleviate the problem that we're having in Port Orchard surrounding areas in regards to cars being stolen and defunded police aren't able to do anything about it?
Okay. We appreciate your comment. We haven't defunded our police, but I appreciate your comments. And remember, we're here to talk about Veterans Park here this evening.
Oh, you are? I thought it was like enforcement agencies and what we're doing. So is there going to be a Zoom call about that kind of an issue?
We have a city council meetings the next 2 weeks, but there's not a meeting specifically about your issue. But
okay.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Brandy, is there anyone else wishing to address us this evening?
I do not see any additional hands raised at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for indulging me for allowing public comment. And so we're here tonight because I think we all know that we have a very serious situation at Veterans Park. Our estimates, there's more than 100 people living within the park, which is a county park that happens to be within the city limits. We have instituted an enforcement action due to health and public safety concerns. And the county, I know, is implemented some new policies, which I think are great, but they're not the actions that we're looking for, I don't believe, to address these health and public safety concerns. I know that you guys have installed a couple of Santa cans, and there's a dumpster located at the site. Concerns we have with that dumpster that it's the trash, there's rodent problems in there, and that the trash sits for up to a week on the ground before it's sorted and put into the dumpsters. And I think it can't exist in that manner. We have our code enforcement officer that visited the park today, and there has been some cleanup, and I believe there was 11 tons of garbage removed, but there's much more to be done. There's little to nothing's been done on the north end of the park, is in my understanding, and there's still considerable amount of trash in the south end of the park. So Charlie, I think, if you're good, Brandy, if you could allow Charlie to share her screen. I think we've got some photos that were taken today. We know that you guys are, the dumpsters are locked, and I think we want to see some of the conditions.
This is taken today at the north end of the park.
So this is a bit, as you heard it, at the north end of the park.
This is a growing trash pile adjacent to a residence. You can see the fence in the background. This is one of the trash piles. Those are the primary ones, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Cacciardi.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick comment. I'd just like to thank our commissioners and county staff for joining us here tonight. I think with the objective this evening is to really just have a candid conversation about, this issue. It's significant. The conditions down there, I've been through there. It's absolutely deplorable. And I would like tonight to be about what we can do, not about what we can't do. I don't want to hide behind a Boise decision or other issues. We have a significant health issue, safety issue, and criminal behavior issue. And I think that should be the root of the conversation this evening, all of which, lie outside some of those other court cases. And I think it's just in the best interest of not only just the Port Arthur community, but Kitsap County. We've been enabling this behavior, the bottom line. And this is why this has been growing since 2018, 2019, is because we're flat ignoring the health, safety, and criminal behavior. And I'd like us to focus on what we can do this evening versus what we can't do.
Thank you, Sean. So I think that that's the primary concern, that the garbage is continuing to grow. We've got a public health issue there. We've got sanitation concerns, and I believe also public health is weighed in on this also. We've got a wellhead there, that West Sound Utility, that needs to be protected, stream and wetlands, as well as neighbors there. And I just, as Sean eloquently said, what can we do to correct this problem? And, and to be, the code enforcement issue, is what we have to deal with. But the root problem is the homeless population that is living there. And even if you clean it up today, tomorrow, if you don't deal with the core problem, it's going to continue to exist. So I welcome anyone from the county, if you could interject. What can you do, and what are you willing to do?
Why don't I talk first a little bit about what we have done? We have had cleanups. We've had lots of assistance, especially from the church community, and drug court graduates have given us a couple of days of significant assistance in cleanups out at the park. For me, what really has to happen is the people who are living outside, we need to figure out housing opportunities for them. You know that we have purchased the former gym on Mile Hill and hope to be able to house up to 75 people there. But it's a slow process to make the renovations in the building that need to occur. And then we have the Housing Solutions Center and Kitsap Rescue Mission that will help with a selection. Actually, Doug Washburn can talk about this a lot better than I can, but with a selection of potential residents within that building. Doug, did you want to add anything to that?
Mr. Mayor, if I could just jump in, I apologize. And I know there's a couple of hands for Jay and Sean, and I apologize for that. I'm just thinking it might be helpful. I know that we did provide a sort of a synopsis of activities to date to council, but I know the folks that may be attending this evening as attendees or seeing this on YouTube won't have had the benefit of that same information. So if it'd be possible for potentially Alex to kind of run through that just quickly, just to kind of provide that baseline as we move into a constructive conversation about what can be done.
Thank you.
Evening, Mayor, council members. Appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening and to talk about Veterans Memorial Park and the challenges that we have there and have had since, from what I can tell in discussions with staff dating back to 2018 is really when the unauthorized homeless encampments began to escalate in the park. Since then, a variety of response tactics have taken place. First began with Parks Department staff managing the encampments within the confines of department capacity. And that over the years has escalated and increased in terms of number of encampments and decreased our impact and ability to manage it as an individual department. So as this happened, so has the county's response to it. And the response has escalated through partnerships with outside organizations, through including and getting assistance from other county departments within the county organization, Public Works, and really a lot of effort coming through Doug and his staff in the Human Services Department. And kind of bringing us up to where we're at. Activities have included dating back to mid-2020 from what I could tell, and just this predates some of my personal employment in the county, so I'm going off of information that I've received from other individuals, from other staff. We have had regular large volunteer cleanup events every 2 to 3 months, approximately. That time frame varies over the course. Has in large part been spearheaded as a partnership between the county, Northwest Hospitality Organization, and like I said, the county parks, county solid waste through Public Works Department, and multiple dumpsters and I couldn't even begin to understand how much tonnage of garbage has been hauled out of the park. But obviously, via the pictures that were shared earlier, we still have a ways to go. I guess part of the point here is that this is not a situation that happened overnight, and it's going to take some time for us to, kind of end up in a location, in a place where I think we all want to get to. And we have that kind of collective vision. It's just going to take some time. So we've had these volunteer events. We have staff visiting the park on a daily basis. That continues to happen. It hasn't stopped happening. We have portalets located on site at 2 different locations. We have dumpsters located there. We have volunteer activities that have ramped up to the point where recently they're taking place on a weekly basis to, again, going back to some of the photos, to help sort through the garbage to ensure that what's being placed in the canisters are acceptable by the waste management department, the organization, and kind of we've done some recent brush clearing and understory growth under some of the trees and kind of the frontage of the park, or really those areas between Retzel Road and the playfields. We did have quite a bit of encampments in there, and once those were cleaned out, we had park maintenance staff go in and begin to cut back the blackberry and the undergrowth to open up sight lines and really reduce the kind of hiding places for encampments to move back into. And so kind of doing what we can in terms of physical activity on the grounds. And then kind of looking into the future and what's on the horizon and coming our way. We are working with Kitsap Leadership Program to provide sharps containers for needle collection. We know that was a challenge in the past. Needles were ending up inside the portalets and causing damage to the portalets and the suction machines that were being used to clean them out. As mentioned earlier, there was a policy that was recently passed by the county as a unauthorized encampment response plan. And granted, wholly understand that, the plan is only as good as the action that comes out of it. And that is the part that is currently in play. Part of that was approving funding for additional staffing that will be the kind of guiding staff to initiate the program and really have the capacity to focus on the encampment response, which kind of goes through this phase of compassionate response, where we're coming in to provide services and link up folks who are experiencing homeless with needed services. And it graduates over the course of time to providing notice that encampments need to be removed from the park. And eventually, and this is the part where the new facility on Mile Hill will help us, is that provides the alternative location that gives us then the footing to trespass folks from the park grounds. And so I guess briefly, that's kind of where we came from and what we're doing currently and where we're heading to. I hope that provides a decent synopsis.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. I got a couple of hands raised here. Councilmember Rosa Pepe.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I guess my first question is, I heard a lot of discussion and reading the letters, about what we're going to do, but not much of a timeline of when we're going to do it. Several council members toured the site. I went by there again this weekend, and there, in that time frame, there really hasn't been much done. I applaud the unauthorized encampment policy, the HART team, etc. But right now, West Sound Utilities is having significant concerns on the county and city drinking water going in spring. And this is not going to be an issue that's going to go away. I'm not sure that we can wait until the Mile Hill shelter is there in order to solve these problems about trespassing when shelters are available within a range, more so than just outside of the park. So I'd like to hear specifics about cleanup and schedule, trash removal, and items with the porta potty, because this is unacceptable. Thank you.
Councilmember Cacciardi?
Do you want the county to respond to Jay's questions first?
Is anyone prepared to respond to that question or statement, or as far as timelines?
No. So go ahead and ask the question.
Okay. Go ahead, Sean.
So just a couple of, and again, trying to be someone at the table here that's trying to solve this problem. This problem has been enabled. We keep bringing up the fact that this started in 2018 and now we're about ready to cross over to 2022. And the reason why this problem is growing because it's been enabled. And there's a big, big difference between true homelessness and those that choose to leave a life of criminal activity, that are purposefully, ignoring help. Our navigators, I don't know if, I know you guys have a part-time navigator, if you've heard any testimony from them and what they're hearing, but there's a big difference. There are services available, and many of the people living in this park are ignoring and declining these services. So I just want to make it clear that there's a difference between trying to solve a true homeless problem for these people that we all sympathize with and they need the services, and those that choose to be where they're at doing what they're doing. And to me, to even talk about, oh, we need some sharps containers. What do you mean we need sharps containers? We need to eliminate drugs out of this county park, right? So I think we're going about it the wrong direction. Are you guys aware of the fires that are occurring in this place? Are you aware of the explosions that have occurred? Are you aware of the deaths that have occurred in this park? It's interesting that the coroner's office doesn't have any record of it, yet fire jurisdictions do. I don't know if you all understand the gravity of this problem. And to me, we cannot lose sight of the rest of our community over a group of people that by and large are choosing this behavior. And that's a big differentiator, is choosing this behavior and ignoring the assistance that we do have. We do have assistance for them. It's just a locked dumpster. A part of the plan is to put all this trash in. This trash it's unbelievable. I hope you've all seen it. To go ahead and just set it on the ground for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, next to critical water sources, next to, critical environmental places where then we can come and sort through it. That is not a solution. This trash needs to be put into containers and taken off site to where it can be sorted. I just think that we're hiding behind the root cause. And I beg all of us to come up with better solutions. This has been 3 years now. The reason why we're having this problem today is because it's been ignored for 3 years and it's been enabled for 3 years. Thank you.
So I want to, I guess, acknowledge and appreciate what the county, it's not that the county hasn't done anything. It's just, this thing has continued to mushroom and grow, out of control. And so we've got to get in front of this and deal with these health and public safety issues. I believe there could be an opportunity modeled down in Olympia recently that is on some Burlington Northern property, and I would encourage the county to look at that, and maybe there's some sort of a solution, interim solution, that's putting the folks that truly want help into tents, and we get them out in the open, out into the parking lot, and which allows the county then to potentially clean up the park and the wetlands and protect our streams and our water sources. So I would encourage the county to look at that model of what they've just done down in Olympia. I know there aren't any easy answers, but we just can't continue the status quo of what's been going on, because as you saw in the pictures, I know a lot has been done, but there's just so much more to do, and it's got to get done immediately and not after a shelter's been open or this plan gets implemented. So other comments or questions from others? Councilmember Lucarelli.
So I guess my concerns when we go back to safety is the photos that we saw tonight are nothing actually compared to the photos I've been seeing. 5-gallon buckets of feces are located in multiple sources, especially along the stream. There have been toilets that are just basically feces being thrown over the edge of the canyon, hillsides. A lot of this is working its way down into the water. If it was dog waste, we'd be having a huge problem with going after the people causing the problems and trying to determine what to do next. It's such a hazard, and I'm a little surprised it's not being treated like it is the public safety issue that it is. There are no hydrants in the park. I know that when we go with building codes and such, it's really important to have hydrants within certain locations of living quarters. We're not seeing hydrants in there to deal with the significant problems they're having within the park itself. There was a large fire this year. It's just, it's a jungle. It's a jungle. If you think that you've been doing enough, or why would it be so out of control now? That meaning that anything that's been done heretofore just hasn't been able to touch the problem. We need to start moving those people out of there. I truly believe that. I think we need to come up with a plan where we're moving them out. We have to figure out where they're going to go or whatever, but that may not be a shelter at this point. We need to get that part cleaned up. There's criminal activity going on in there. People are not safe. Prostitution, drug problems. I mean, they're hurting each other. We have got to come up with a plan, and I think we need to start working on it like right now, a legitimate plan with a timeline.
Councilmember Chang.
Welcome to Kitsap County, Alex Wisniewski. I know you're very new, and thank you for the synopsis. I appreciate that there are currently porta potties in the park, because it sounds like for much of the summer there were not. And because of that, we had the 5-gallon buckets that Cindy spoke so descriptively about. I would like to ask that you consider putting more of them. I know that they could be magnets for activity other than their intended use, but I don't know that everyone should be penalized for the actions of a few. This also reminds me that I would agree with Sean that there are many issues going on here, and some of the homeless seem to be more responsible than others, but I think our dilemma is, how do we solve it so we're not penalizing all of them for the actions of a few?
All right, Councilmember Diener.
So first, I'd like to say that I began getting involved in site cleanups a couple of years ago, beginning with a site behind an encampment behind Goodwill, me and my family, and then also recently at Veterans Park. So I do have a personal understanding of what we're seeing in those parks and how devastating it can be. I also understand that there is no single solution that can fix what we want fixed. I think Fred has a good ask. Let's try and double up the porta potties. If one gets ruined or whatever happens to one of those, at least we've got some redundancy. It's unfortunate that those Santa cans do get treated the way they are, but they are needed. I'd also like to let people know that I attended the listening session that was talking about the Mile Hill Shelter. And I think for a lot of people, they're on edge about what that means and what that may or may not be able to do. But I think if people understand how permitting works, particularly with the type of permitting that we're looking at and the hearing that will accompany that permit, they'll understand that if it meets code, it's approvable. And I would just encourage that once the county understands what it's going to do, I believe it knows how many beds, but how many parking spaces, the rules for the shelter, the hours of operation, that we try and get that hearing underway as soon as possible, because that will take the edge off of it for a lot of people. I understand and I heard that people are not in favor of that, and quite often it's because of its proximity to where they live. I understand that. But I think moving on the mile shelter would be very helpful. I do understand that there are logistical concerns with supply chain issues and so on, but having the hearing and having people understand what that will do and how that will control the behavior of the people that live there, I think is important.
Councilmember Ashby.
Yes, just because we do have a critical situation at Veterans Park, and it's critical not only for the park and the residents within the encampment, but it is life-changing for the neighbors in the neighborhood. And I know that we do not have a defined timeline yet. I know that the county commissioners passed their unauthorized encampment policy. I know that they're seeking additional funds to deal with affordable housing and homelessness. I know there are a lot of things in the works, and I know there is no timeline for those. What I heard this evening were two very actionable items that would help immediately, and that is more porta potties for the residents there, and to remove the trash, I would say daily or more frequently than weekly, and to take it off-site for the sorting process. There is a serious infestation of rodents, and those are some of our safety and health concerns. We have to get rid of the rodents, we have to get rid of the garbage, and we have to have a place for people to take care of their bodily functions. Those should all be actionable without a great deal of effort on the county's part. I realize it's a big problem. There's a lot of issues that we're going to have to face, but there are some things that we should be able to do rather quickly that will alleviate some of the immediate pressures.
And Becca, if I could add to that, another actionable item, very actionable, is to stop the criminal activity, right? The drugs, the prostitution, this has to be enforced, and we need the county's assistance to do that. But that's also very, very actionable. Again, there's a big difference between a true homelessness crisis and criminal activity, and we have to treat the two differently if we're going to get out ahead of this.
I think Councilmember Clausen.
Yes, and I would just add, the discussion about the homeless shelter on top of Mount Hill, I think is a major great step forward. But I think that limiting the options to just the south end may not be reasonable. I think you mentioned it's designed to house maybe 60, 70 families, but we've got, in our estimations down at the park now, 100 or more. Now, not all of those, as Councilmember Conchardi mentioned, probably are interested in some kind of shelter. But still, I think we need to look more than just the south end for available housing opportunities for these folks. I know that we've been told that, for example, Gig Harbor looks to the city of Tacoma for available space as well. So it's not, Mercer Island looks to Bellevue as their catchment area, if you will, not that they're trying to push the problem off onto another community. It's just that the number of beds that are available is more so than just the immediate area. So I would hope that we could look more as a county-wide problem and not just a Veterans Park problem.
Sean, do you have your hand
Yeah,
raised.
yeah, I have another comment. Just, I would encourage you also to look at, something that seemingly has been working for the city of Port Orchard is the fact that we close our parks at dusk for everybody, right? And so, we have a number of parks in this city that do not have this problem. And so I'm wondering if there's things that we have been doing that also the county perhaps could adopt to help to alleviate this. And so in all of our parks in the city of Port Orchard, no resident, no member of the public can access our parks after dusk, and it certainly has helped alleviate this problem from our other parks.
So I've got some with actionable items I've heard here is the trash existing and then the ongoing to get it off site, more porta potties, because we want to get out from underneath this code enforcement action. And then there's long-term solutions to deal with the homelessness too. Porta potties, the crime. And I know the city we've gotten quotes related to fencing the right of way along Mile Hill. And it's not inexpensive. It's going to be $30,000 plus. And we're willing to do that, but it won't be effective unless the county's willing to take similar action. And that's, I think, as a way we could potentially protect those neighbors from the activity, because it gets the homeless population potentially out of the wetlands and the stream area, and to not allow anybody into those critical areas. And we're willing to put some resources to it, but without the county willing to take similar actions to secure the wetlands and the stream areas, it really wouldn't be effective. So those are the 3 actionable items. And then, I did ask you to potentially look at how Olympia is managing a similar situation. And then like I say, we'd be willing to participate in a fencing solution. Councilmember Lucarelli.
I also want to comment on the idea of trying to take care of all the homeless. We will never be able to do that. No matter how many beds you have, we will never be able to handle all of the people that will come that will need services. We can make an effort on that, but I read an article that said that it was important to keep the homeless near where they live. I would challenge all of us in the belief that all of the people living in this park are from Port Orchard. Homeless folks are quite transient, especially in the warmer weather. They move from place to place often, have done so throughout the years. I'm from Madison, Wisconsin, and I can tell you that Madison, Wisconsin had a policy back in the day that was very generous. And we found many, many people coming from Chicago, Illinois to take advantage of our services. This is also what will happen. We not only are going to be taking care of our own, but we will be taking care of people coming in from other areas when they hear that this is a good place to live, to be served, all of that. That is not an easy problem to solve, but we should not be deceived into thinking that all of these people living in this park are from Port Orchard.
Let's try to keep our what we're trying to do here related to the how we can deal with the immediate problem that we have. And Councilmember Rosa Pepe.
Thank you, Mayor. One other item I'd like to add to the list of things that need to be done is there's a couple of areas, one right off of Mile Hill, and I believe also off of Retzel, that if we move put either some concrete blocks there or move the gates out, it would stop people from parking disabled vehicles and living in them there also.
I think it's part of that fencing solution.
Okay.
Councilmember Ashby.
Yes, I want to have a much lighter solution to all of this. And this is a park. This is Veterans Park. I know in the past there have been a lot of soccer games over there. Is there any opportunity for the county to engage that park more? Because the more activity there is at the park, the less likely there will be for people to want to live there.
Dick, are you talking mostly about the soccer field being engaged more?
Yeah, or just around there. I mean, just the park itself. Is there anything we can do to encourage people to go there and use the park actively? Because I think that would discourage the people from having the encampment right there.
I think myself, well, go ahead, Beck.
Well, the other thing is, you know, the encampment is there and it's on the transit line. Thank you very much, Mr. Clausen, for providing public transportation there. But there's a lot of convenience with that location. I know Councilman Cacciardi talked about some of our other parks where we do not have this problem. And one in particular, there's no public transportation to get to it. There are no services there, so it's not an attractive place to be. So again, I looked at some of those actionable items that we could do quickly, such as Santa cans, getting rid of the garbage. But long term, is there anything we can do to make that park more active that would discourage people from living there? Again, that's a longer term solution, but it seems to me it's a public facility and we should really be utilizing it as a park.
I hate to lose this as a park. I think park spaces in particular, one as large and as significant in our community as this is, we need to cherish those things. That's a very good point, Councilmember Ashby, but this park's been closed because it's not safe for quite some time. And I personally, and I'm not speaking for the city council at all on this, I'd rather see this property developed in some other fashion than to continue in the fashion that it is today, in my personal opinion. So, Councilmember Diener.
That ties into the question I was going to ask. So as of about a year ago, I personally know, because my daughter played soccer there, that the fields were being used. And we would see people going into the woods. Even at that time, I wasn't quite sure what was going on in the woods or how big a problem it was. But my question for Alex is, are there any restrictions on the redevelopment of this property?
Off the top of my head, I'm not aware of any restrictions on the land, but that doesn't mean that there might be something in place based on where it came from, how it was developed, how it was acquired. I'm not exactly certain.
So it actually had funding through RCO, so the Recreation and Conservation Office. So there are consequences for the conversion of the property from a park to some other use. So there's a financial thing, and basically then you have to, in order to mitigate that, you have to find other property that's similar and liked and actually sort of move that use somewhere else, which, as we know, can be a challenge.
Thank you.
Okay.
So if I know everyone has, I don't know about anybody else, but I haven't had dinner yet. And I appreciate everyone's time. And I do, I truly appreciate just kind of, the creative thinking and trying to come up with those actionable items. Those are very helpful for us, because if I were to have posed a question early on, I would have asked, so what if this were, it's in the city limits, what if it was under city ownership and you had this experience, what would you have done? What would have been your approach to it? And so I think that's really helpful for us. We know that we have challenges when we cannot criminalize homelessness, but at the same time, we do have to acknowledge the criminal activity, and we get that. And really, and we'll sort of set law enforcement aside right now, but I do appreciate sort of some of those actionable items, whether it is exploring what was able to take place in Olympia with Burlington Northern and that possible solution. Is it applicable here? And if so, how? The addition of some additional porta potties, potentially fencing, the frequency of trash removal, and obviously, well, that's tied to sort of the rodent piece of it. I think, as Beck mentioned, or Councilmember Ashby, sorry, Beck, but it is sort of that level of activity and the eyes that we have, and just sort of the amount of activity or the amount of people who are observing, right? I think that's one of the things that we have found, that if you are, even with our Housing Solution Center outreach team, if you keep on going back repeatedly to a particular location of note, then folks, if they're not into that or not willing to get connected to services, often will move on. And so that could be the case here as well. The only caveat there is, where will people move to? They'll either get connected to services or they will move to another location. And those are those potential unintended consequences that we all need to be aware of. Because will they leave Port Orchard altogether, or will they go to somewhere else in Port Orchard? So we just have to go forward with our eyes wide open on that regard. So I think and the other piece of it was really trying to identify a clear timeline and what those action steps are. And so I think we do have some homework we can take from this evening's meeting and craft that hopefully into an outline or a process that will be, hopefully will meet the wishes and desires of the City Council and the City of Port Orchard.
When could we expect to see a timeline for those actionable items?
Well, don't want to put Doug or Alex on the spot, but I mean, we'll have to get together and do that work and kind of come up with what are those actionable items. And so I really can't speak for them, because other than approving of any additional expenditures, I may not be the one that's actually making the calls and arranging the resources.
This gives us the opportunity to have a tougher conversation, and maybe within a couple of weeks, we could at least touch base with you to just tell you what we have been able to accomplish and what still has to be addressed.
I think that's great, Commissioner Garrido. Perhaps we could have something, even if it's just a memo. We have another meeting on the 14th and then again on the 21st. So maybe December 21st, and ahead of our council meeting that evening, we could have just some sort of an update. That would be really appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Washburn, you get your hand raised.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to point out that I wanted the City Council to realize that we do take this with urgency. Commissioner Garrido just said, we'll have some difficult conversations. We've already had several difficult conversations moving forward. I believe your attorney is Ms. Archer, that's on the call with us here. She realizes some of the legal aspects that go into what we're trying to do here. We've added 150 new beds since COVID started, shelter beds countywide. What we know is it's over 80% of the people that are homeless are from Kitsap County. So we're not seeing a big influx of people from exterior. Also, the Housing Solution Center going out there, we see a lot of churn. People that we go out there, they do take us up on options, but there is a core group. I believe one of the council members said, there's some bad guys out there basically. And there's a core group there that we can't get to move. And that's what we're trying to get around. That's what this policy will allow us to do, to trespass people like that and say, because frankly, they're not going to take us up on the Mile Hill facility, those people that we're having real difficulties with. But what this policy does, it allows us to say, you don't have to go there. We have a place for you if you're willing to go, but you can't stay here anymore. We try to do the compassionate response at first, which we've done, but then this policy gives us the opportunity to actually move forward with more of a law enforcement action. And then also another, Lucarelli, I think Councilwoman said, if you think you're doing enough, you're not. We certainly don't think we're doing enough. We see this with urgency. We get up every day thinking about this, worrying about this, trying to take action on this. With the new outreach team that the commissioners funded, with the new position the commissioners have funded, with the Mile Hill Stadium. I mean, we have literally millions of dollars invested into this now, but please know, we do take this with urgency.
Well, I would like to thank everybody, and I look forward to I hope, and I think we all recognize the urgency here, and we want to hear back sooner than later on these actionable items so that we can get out from underneath this code enforcement action.
Thank you, county folk.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I see John's got his hand raised.
Yeah, I was just going to do the same thing, and I just wanted to recognize the commissioners. Thank you very much for your time tonight and coming to hear us, as well as bringing your staff. I know this is not an easy problem to solve, but I think these are the types of things where we can all get together, kind of brainstorm, if you will, that we can maybe collectively come up with some solutions. So I just wanted to thank you guys for coming tonight.
And I see Fred Chang's got his hand raised, and we'll
So I
try to-
wanted to thank the staff and commissioners, but also, Mr. Mayor, I was wondering if we want to give the public an opportunity to weigh in, another chance maybe.
Okay. We'll have one more public comment period. And anyone wishing to address the council, we'll give you 2 minutes. And remember, it's a comment period, not a question and answer period. So you raise your hand and the clerk will acknowledge you and bring you into the meeting.
All right, Mayor, I have one person that has raised their hand by the name of Tom. I will bring them over in just a moment.
Thank you. Tom, we see you there. If you can unmute yourself, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to add that I do think that people are taking this seriously, and I understand that there's difficulties in addressing the situation, but I didn't realize until Fred Chang talked to us about the legal actions that you cannot just have the sheriff go and arrest them for trespassing if you don't have a place to stay. I like the long-term plans. I agree that there need to be more temporary housing facilities. They're building Kennedy Place, they're building the one at Mile Hill. All those things are behind the power curve, clearly. But I do believe there are a large number of people that think this is the right approach to go in building these facilities. Utah has pretty much eliminated the homeless problem through these practices. So I like to see it going that way. I do like having them have the option to legally get bad actors and those people that you can't do anything because of legal constraints because you don't have a place to offer them to go. Get that on the books, and then the sheriff can do something with those people, and you can fix that problem of how horrible the park's getting. And I will say that the listening sessions that the county held, they were overwhelmingly negative about that shelter, but that's because there's a very well-organized small group that really pushed to get people to show up at that. And I was way late in getting people in the group that I talked with, the next door chat. There, I've got 140 people there. They're all in support of it. So, but we just weren't as well organized to show up at that meeting. So there's good support for those projects that the county's doing in the county, I believe, or in the area. So thank you for allowing me to comment.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you for your comment. Granny, is there anyone else that has raised their hand?
Not at this time.
Okay. With that, I thank you. And council members, we're not going to adjourn this. I know we're going to head into another executive session, but county staff and commissioners, appreciate you joining us tonight. And we look forward to your response.
Thank you.
Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, council members. Chief, do we need the chief or Katie? Can I let them go? Or do you want Katie there? Probably don't want Katie there, and I don't think you want the chief, or do you want them both in the executive session?
I don't see the need for the chief.
I don't see a need.
Okay. And probably
Thank you.
want to. Okay. Have a good evening. And Katie, I'm sorry, we're going to keep you another, I promise, no more than 15 minutes. So let's go back over to that other link, which is for the executive session.
The executive session will be pursuant to RCW 4230-110, subpart 1, subpart I, to discuss legal risk of a agency enforcement action for approximately 15 minutes with no action to follow.
Yes.